24-hour painting challenge. 24 hours. 24 hours. Can I paint 10 minis?
Can you take me to the playground?
It's just going to have to be 48 hours.
Jackson.
24 hours can't be done. The 24-hour challenge is absolutely amazing. You get to see a lot of like fun, cool techniques come out. Really how far somebody can take something in such a short amount of time. Even if they fail at it, it's still really fun to walk along on that journey with them. However, that 24-hour challenge is not always applicable for everybody. Myself being one of them. 3 kids, 3 dogs, 14 chickens, a lot of hours at work. Here's a little hint, it's over 40. Just life in general. You don't have time to dedicate 24 hours always to sit down and work on just a hobby. So, 48-hour challenge. How far can I get in it in 48 hours? Of course, there's going to be interruptions. I'm not going to be able to sit down and hammer through this. I work, my girlfriend works, our kids need food, the dogs need taken out. All these things take up a massive amount of time. Normally, I really feel lucky if I get 1 to 2 hours at night to sit down and do my hobby. So I'm going to try to do this. I've got a couple of days off work, hammer it out, see how far we go. So as you can see, 9 o'clock on Sunday. We're going to roll through till 9 o'clock on Tuesday. Without further ado, let's see how we break this down and get rolling. Diving into this, one of the first questions that you might have, who are the Midnight Suns? They're a much smaller, focused in like Avengers style group. They focus on the occult, the mystic. So you're going to have Dr. Voodoo, Doctor Strange, the Hulk, Wong, Iron Fist, Moon Knight, Blade, Black Cat, Ghost Rider, and I threw in Punisher because he's a Punisher. And he's awesome. And you need him. Here's a good sampling of all the bases that we have. Now, let's get to painting. One of my favorite colors that I use on a lot of my minis across a lot of different things, especially with scenery and terrain where you have a lot of stone, is this intermittent blue. It's a great color, has a really, really good mixture of gray and blue because there's not a lot of things that are just straight gray. So it throws that nice visual interest into it. So start with the concrete on everything. Do a heavy overbrush. Don't go nuts. You know, you don't want to fill in all the cracks. You can, but it's just cleanup that you have to do later. It makes it easier if you have control and smoothness along the way. There's a lot of bricks on some of these bases. This one here is specifically for Ghost Rider, and it's an amazing base. All these bricks are really nice, really quick, really fun to paint up. And do them individually. In my opinion, it's just going to look a lot better. You can overbrush this as well. You'll get it done quicker, but you have a lot of cleanup that you have to do. And it just is a lot nicer when you do it individually. Take your time, focus on it. This didn't take me much time at all, and bam, it's finished up. It looks great, but there's a couple more things that we could do. I really love this base because it does have road markings on it. You know, a lot of the Marvel Crisis game is based around urban terrain. Every one of their bases is themed on urban terrain. So that's kind of what you get. It would be nice if there was a little bit of variation to it, but it does make sense. This manhole cover had a bunch of texture on it. Again, I could have overbrushed it and done super quick, but I am a glutton for punishment sometimes and picked out each one of those by hand. Final step here, do all the cracks, all the cuts in the cement, line all the bricks with a nice solid black. Gives good contrast, makes everything pop. Really, really nice, just standout base. Here's a good collection of all of them. And get them out of here, because it's time to paint an actual mini. The Punisher. I loved this guy as a kid. One of the first comic books that I had. when he was on The Amazing Spider-Man in the 90s, he didn't have his traditional black suit. I have a feeling that is more than likely because there was like this weird rule where like Spider-Man couldn't punch at things, no guns could actually be used. They really dulled down a lot of the characters. Like Morbius sucked blood out of the palm of his hand instead of his teeth, like a vampire that he is. So I have a feeling that's why the Punisher didn't have his like all black suit with that really stark white skull on it that had this like soft blue. So I took that same intermittent blue that I'm a huge fan of, and I worked in this spectral glow from Reaper. It took me a little bit on the wet palette, really had a lot of fun with it, mixed it around, tried a couple variations, but eventually I figured out how to get this really looking as close to the comics as I could. Or not comics, the animated series. A couple thin coats, and this went on great. You know, I went back, did a couple of slight highlights on the pockets. I really didn't want to go nuts with that. That's something I traditionally would do, but in order to keep it in this style, I had to keep on stopping myself and reminding myself, smooth coats, don't go nuts. There we go. That's the suit. Skin, super simple. Couple thin coats of Cadian flesh tone. I will learn how to talk once again by the end of this video. I halfway promise it. I don't do a lot of detail on the faces on these. Only some of the bigger models like Hulk. I just throw on the skin tone and I move on. I hit up all of the little doodly dads that he had, all the strapping, and that adds a lot of the color variation, a lot of the pop on him. And there he is. So on the first night done, obviously not the first day. I am only about 2 hours and 40 minutes into it. All the bases are like 90% complete painted. Most of them are complete. Some of them there's just like little details I want to add into it. But I think that's really going to happen when I sit the mini on top of it. As you can see, it is 11:42 on the first night. So I'm done. Another part of this is I'm not going to stress myself out too much. I'm going to get a couple hours rest, try to get up before my kids, and maybe paint Wong and Iron Fist real early in the morning. So here we go. It's 9 o'clock the next day. Far later than I planned. But that's exactly why this is a 48-hour challenge. I woke up at 5:30 with the intent on taking care of the dogs, getting myself kind of some coffee going, down here by 6 o'clock. However, my girlfriend had a rough night with our baby and asked for a little bit of extra help this morning so she could catch up on a little bit more sleep. So now it's 9 o'clock. Now we're getting started. I'm going to try and spend the next 2 hours and get both these guys knocked out in that time, and then maybe one more by like midday. Jumping into it, Wong and Iron Fist here, back to back. Wong, when you look at the cartoons, I believe it was the Spider-Man animated series he was in, he had a purple suit on. The box art's green. I think a lot of the comics is green, but this is purple. I have no fan theory as to why that one was purple. So I threw in this base coat of magenta. I had a real hard time with it. I think it was just like incredibly thinned out between that and the purple. I put in so many layers, but in the end, I switched it off the wet palette. Just thinly watered it down. There you go. Wong was looking sharp. Now, Iron Fist had one really big detail on him, and that was a lot of yellow. This big energy dragon that he was creating, all of his bandanas and his scarves, his wristbands, his boots. And when I was painting a lot of the X-Men, I, of course, threw a lot of yellow, and that is so hard to paint. You just put layer and layer and layer, and you go nowhere. So I threw the question up in a group. Someone said, hey, base it in pink first, and I'll be. That worked phenomenally. You put 1-2 coats of yellow on, and there you go. Wong, Iron Fist. Love it. A little bit of trouble, but well worth it. Now moving over to a guy I knew nothing about, Dr. Voodoo. I think he was in like a game on my phone that I played at one point, and that was all my knowledge of him. So when I was looking at the Midnight Suns, I looked up a little bit into him. He's a pretty fascinating character overall. Got to mix up a lot of paints for this one, do a little bit of dance. You know, it really does help the paints come out. But Dr. Voodoo, I loved this mini. I loved the sculpt, and I had a blast painting him. He was still pretty simple, pretty straightforward, like all of them are. But he had small details on there, like the skulls that were mixed into the smoke that he was coming up out of. Just the way that his suit was. One thing is he was not in any of the old animated series, so trying to get a good reference photo for him on that was pretty tricky, but I did find kind of some graphics that looked like they would fit. Typically he had a black suit with white bones over top of it. This mini wasn't quite like that, but it was kind of close. Then his red cape, and one drawing I found, one illustration, he had a green belt. I loved it. I don't know why. It was just, it threw color variation in. It wasn't just straightforward the same 2-3 colors throughout the entire thing. So on his belt and this little like extra cloth on his staff, I threw some green in, and it was fantastic. There he is, all purdy. This guy gets a full 360 because that's just a nice mini. So it's 8:41 on Monday. We're almost 24 hours in, and it has been a day riddled with setbacks. But it was time to get the Hulk done, so I jumped over on TikTok. I went live. A good group of people watched paint him. Hour and a half. Fantastic fun time. Well, it is 8:20 on the last day. I have about 12 and a half hours to go. Still what I have is Blade. He's just barely started. Black Cat, Doctor Strange, and Ghost Rider. I'm a little bit behind on where I wanted to be right now, but so I'm going to dive right in, knock out Blade, start on the old Sorcerer Supreme, and see how far I can get, how quick I can get. Time to speed that camera up again, mix up a bunch of paint, stare awkwardly at the camera, and get going. Blade had a similar issue as some of the others. Oh, something here grabbed my attention. Of course, more distractions, had to run away. But Blade's big issue for this mini is it was a black trench coat, a black shirt, black belt, black pants, black boots. You really needed to make it break up and move across. So when I looked up into the old animated series, of course, I keep saying that because that's my theme on this whole thing. A lot of like blue highlighting that was done on him, like that big block, like almost like cell shading that was done. So I used different intermittent blue, mixed in with some black, kind of did a couple of tone variations, did a lot of different grays, tested a lot of it out on my wet palette. So all of his straps, his knee pads, his belt, all of it, different versions of it. One really cool thing is they highlighted his shirt with red, and he has this big chest piece. So I highlighted that with red, and I thought that looked great. Moving on to Doctor Strange, there wasn't a whole lot with this one that really stood out. You know, it's purple tunic or shirt, and that matched with the animated series as well. The big issue I had with him was this darn red cape. The red just wouldn't get a smooth coat on. I just had to do multiple coats again. I'm not sure why it was. If there's a trick with red that somebody knows, please throw it in the comments. Or if you have like a brand or a specific red that you really like, please throw it in the comments. But I believe it's time for some distractions. Yep. 3, 2, 1, go.
All because I put sand in Daddy's coop. What have you been working on?
All these minis on the table.
My favorite's that one. I think he might be really cool because it's kind of like dry bones.
Dry bones?
Yeah. Who's your favorite one, but you can't pick cold? Why don't we make a room only for bullies.
All right, so that's a much needed distraction. Honestly, watching it now, that still makes me smile. So anyway, moving into Ghost Rider. How do you take a metallic motorcycle and make no metallics at all, no non-metallic metal painting, and really bring it to life? I just used 3 different shades of blacks and grays and took my time, did a lot of repeating on it, and there you go. Now his pants, they're always black. I thought I'd try to give him blue jeans just to give him a little bit more of a color pop. And I think I inadvertently gave him mom jeans. So let me know what you think. Probably should have stuck it with black. The flames, this was a really cool part. I'm not going to show you the pink to yellow. I've seen that a handful of times on this. But how do you traditionally paint flames? Is you go from a yellow to an orange to a red. And you just get the tips of the flames with the black. And I feel that does a fantastic job. You be the judge though, and if you have a favorite way that you paint flames, throw it down in the comments. I'm always down to check out. Last thing with Doctor Strange is I went back in with his spell effects. I did a lot of it the same way that I did Ghost Rider's flames. The only difference is instead of highlighting with black, I went in with white and I just kind of like did a little bit of highlighting on the runes that went around, and I think that looked great. And I realized I never showed anything from Moon Knight, so here he is. Very simple, very quick, very fun. But time to move on. And who is left? Well, it's pretty much just Black Cat. There's really nothing that stood out about Black Cat, so just hammer our way through, knock her out. It was just black suit, white gloves, white hair, in the normal Cadian flesh tone. And she was done. Honestly, it was the I-beam she was standing on. $7:54 Tuesday night. We're just over an hour short of finishing the 48 hours. All the minis are painted. I love how all of them turned out. I had a little bit of time to go in and do some touch-ups. The only issue I'm having is Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange staying on the bases. I have no idea why Ghost Rider's not. Doctor Strange is because he's held on by a wish and a spell. I think this is pretty doable for a lot of people. The detail that you're going to get is definitely going to vary from person to person, but finding the time to do it, as long as it's planned out, it's talked about with everybody in the household, and you're absolutely not going to paint all the Avengers in a weekend. There's like 40 of them. Anyways, really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. And check out the old other social medias, especially things like the old Tiki Takis. I went live on there just recently where I painted up Hulk for this, and a fair amount of people joined into that, and that was a lot of fun. So join in across all of them, and I'll see you next time. And as always, Abu Chinanas.